Clock's going. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, it counts down for you.
Hey everybody, all of our task force followers and soon-to-be followers. We are here with Judge McMullin.
Hi.
And we're here with the president of our task force, Tiara, and the vice president, Amber. So everyone knows that this month is Women's History Month. So in honor of Women's History Month, we want to honor and highlight, as you can see if you follow us on social media, we want to highlight different women that are doing things in Gwinnett County. So,
Yay.
and I mean, it is the bicentennial, and there's a lot of different things going on in Gwinnett.
Yes, there is.
So, Judge McMullin, if you'll introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I am Ruth McMullin. I'm a magistrate judge here in Gwinnett County. I am also an adjunct professor at Emory Law School. And in my free time, I also am one of the attorney coaches for one of the local high schools here in Gwinnett County.
Busy. Yeah, very busy.
For mock trial, yes.
So we'll have some questions, and if you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in the comment box. Please keep them appropriate. Judge McMullin, so can you tell us a little bit about your heritage?
Yes, it's a little complicated. My father is black, and probably some Native American, from Alabama. My mother is Vietnamese and Chinese. She was born and raised in Vietnam, and I was born in Vietnam. And we came here after the war because my family got evacuated. My father actually intended to live in Vietnam, and they were forced to evacuate when the country fell. But had that not happened, we would probably still be living in Vietnam, because he would rather live there than Alabama in the South after the war.
What about you? Which one would you rather live in?
You know, I think either place growing up in Alabama, biracial in the 70s and 80s definitely provided a lot of challenges. But I think being biracial in Vietnam would have also provided a lot of challenges. So I don't know that one would necessarily be better than the other.
And if you guys don't know, Judge McMullin has some awesome, funny kids. Do you and your family go back to Vietnam often, or?
Actually, my parents have been back maybe twice before my father passed away. And I went back for the first time 2 years ago. And I was able to go back with my mother and take my oldest daughter. So, and we went with some other cousins and stuff. Now, extended family, I have somebody in my family goes back every single year. But this was the first time I was able to travel and go with them and see where I was born, the hospital I was born in, and where my parents worked and where they lived and everything. So that was really interesting.
Wow.
And we got a lot of stares.
A lot of stairs.
And a lot of people wanted to take pictures, mostly with my daughter.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Can you tell us about some of the women that you look up to or did in the past?
I would definitely say my mother. You know, growing up, we grew up in this really small town in Alabama. I was the only kid of any color in my entire grade. There were no other Asian kids I ever saw. My mother had one other Vietnamese friend, and her husband was Cuban, but they lived in a town next to us. So I didn't grow up going to school every day with other biracial kids. So my mom, you know, the fact that she came here kind of in an emergency, jumped right into raising a family, you know, working a job, kind of just adjusting to an entirely new world basically on a whim, is amazing. Is absolutely amazing. And I didn't understand it when I was a kid. I just thought she was crazy. But now I realize that she was doing a lot. You know, raising kids, working a job, managing a household in a foreign country, in a language that's not her original native tongue, is pretty amazing.
That is.
So would you say, and of course everyone, in case you don't know, Judge McMullin is the first Vietnamese judge that is here in Gwinnett County. Yeah. So what challenges would you say you've faced being mixed racial, or even in the community being Vietnamese as well? And like you said, when you went over there, you got looks as well.
A
What
lot
are
of
some of
looks.
the barriers that you face, whether it's Americans or going back there?
You know, it's interesting being, even just practicing law as a woman and as being a biracial woman. People don't know what to make of you. They don't know what to assume of you. They certainly don't assume that you're an attorney. So I often get mistaken for the interpreter. I think because my look is kind of ambiguous, they're not quite sure what my background is, so I'm always the default interpreter, or the court reporter. They never assume I'm there as an attorney or as a judge unless I'm wearing a robe. And that's still, sometimes I feel like maybe it's intentional, but a lot of times I think it's just lack of exposure. People just don't assume that women are in higher roles in offices. They just assume that, you know, you must be here in a role that, I mean, there's interpreters are amazing, and so are court reporters, but why can't that person be the judge or the attorney in a case? Or I've actually even, you know, the assumption is I'm a litigant. I've had that asked of me.
I've been
Yes.
mistaken for a defendant a couple times.
Oh, I had someone ask me if I was on my way to the child support office. And this is before I was married and had kids.
Wow.
And that was here.
That's
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why that would pop into your mind of all the things.
Me either. Yeah.
Okay.
So when you're saying, when you're talking about, you know, especially women, we get mistaken, you know, they don't think we're in higher positions or anything like that. Do you think in this day and age that the work in your field is done as far as women being active, or what are some things that you see that you would like for women that especially are attorneys or aspiring to that to fight?
I think that as women, you know, we have, especially women of color, I feel like there's always an assumption that we are short-tempered or hot-tempered, and so we try to combat that stereotype by not challenging people when they make the wrong assumptions. And I feel like that there's still room for us as professional women of color to check people when they make the wrong assumption. It could be a quick, easy, no, I'm not the interpreter, I'm the judge. You know, but I think that we still have a long way to go, because our fallback tends to be, I'm just not going to say anything, because I don't want to reinforce the stereotype that this person, this female woman of color is a hothead. So let me just not say anything and let them go about their business. But I think that there is a way that you can correct people or call them on their implicit bias without being confrontational. And I think that we can explore more ways and develop more techniques to do that, to constantly, it's okay if they feel uncomfortable, they should. Because they should be thinking, well, why did I think she was on her way to the child support office?
Right.
Why did I assume that just by looking at her?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that we could, as professional women, we could do more when people make the wrong assumptions, but we tend to not, because we just don't want to have that confrontation that day, because we have so many other things we end up having confrontations over anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
That is very true.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the biggest challenges are for women in this era?
Still finding our own voice. I think that we, for cultural reasons, for maybe even our own personalities, we tend to maybe not want to express our voices the way we should. And a lot of times, you know, we take it home with us. And then we start thinking and we marinate on it at home. I should have said something. I should have spoke up for myself. I should have done this, you know. Would I do it next time? And then we kind of internalize the stresses that we encounter because we haven't gotten comfortable having a voice and exercising our voice. Mm-hmm. We're getting better, I think, as a whole, but I think that, you know, we could do more in terms of just speaking up.
and with, especially women of color, and, you have your Vietnamese and Chinese side. What are some stereotypes in regards to that? That if you could, you just take a wand and eliminate like that, just like, just...
I am not good at math. I am not good at math. I am not. And it's funny because I actually did go to a high school for kids who were gifted in math and science.
Huh.
And that's when I realized I was not gifted. But there's a reason why I'm a lawyer. It's because I could not be an accountant or anything else that has to do with math. Math does not, I don't grasp it like you think it should by looking at me. I'm not, no. I'm not the one. That's one, huge. I'm honestly not good at math. And I know a lot of Asian folks who are not good at math. That's just a stereotype.
And so what words would you give our generation of women who are not only fighting for a seat at the table, but also might feel that the nation seems to be going backwards as a whole? What's some words of wisdom or advice you can give us?
I would, I think one thing that I think women are good at is we're good at figuring out how to work smarter and not harder. And I think the same thing would be said in terms of fighting for a seat at the table. Work smarter about getting that seat at the table and not harder. If that means coalition building, making alliances or allegiances with people or entities that you wouldn't normally consider an ally or think of them in terms of that or think that you would need an ally. It's okay to align yourself, even within the office, with people that could get you that seat at the table. I think a lot of times for women, we may feel some type of emotional obligation to, be friends with our allies as opposed to just, look, this is strategic, we both agree that this will help us both advance. So I think that the fear of getting emotionally involved in partnerships kind of makes us hold back from pursuing our goals. And so, it's almost like we need to look at getting a seat at the table more as business instead of just, oh, this is something that would be nice or cute if I could have a seat at or be in this position. No, this is a business and this is a strategy and it's nothing personal. And make those allegiances going, eyes wide open that this is what this is for, and keep ourselves reminded that this is for a strategic reason and not an emotional or personal issue.
It's really funny that you said that because I was listening to a podcast. It was a TED Talks podcast about women, and it's talking about the difference between women in the workplace and men, and that men are more likely to ask for more money. They're way more strategically planning, and to get here and there because they have that hard wire, like I must provide, whereas we were more nurturing and we may not ask about this or that, but I think it's really, that is important because we do have a worth. So
we do, but because we are, I really do. You mentioned my kids, so I have twins. They're a boy and a girl, and I do see that there are just some inherent differences in the way these two children who are similarly nurtured, how they go about negotiating things. And I feel like as women, we do tend to not just consider our feelings, but other people's feelings more. So sometimes, it is, I don't want to ask for more because I don't want to stress this person out and having to either tell me no or find a way to give me more. And I know they're already dealing with a lot. But you know what? Ask for it. We have to stop putting, being worried about the personal effects of others and ask for what we feel like we deserve. You're right, we don't ask. We tend to not ask. Or we tend to ask, we lowball ourselves when we do ask. Whereas, I know from talking with my husband, he shoots for the top. And it's like, hey, if they give me anything close to that, I'm happy. And, that's just a different strategy. And I think younger generations could do more And I do think the younger generations are doing better. And I do see more younger women being more bold and more assertive and saying, this is what I want.
Mm-hmm. The worst they can say is no.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
Well, that's some good advice. So really something to marinate on.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any other questions?
Well, what would you say to your younger self? Like, now that you're accomplished and you've reached all of these barriers and you've broken them down, what would you say to yourself?
Aside from a couple of guys, I would definitely tell myself not to date.
I think we all have that little list, like, stay away from this person.
Whole list of don't
They're
date
gonna
them
swoop
girls.
in, stay away, stay away.
Yes, I wish there was a whole list of don't date them girls. I could have, told my younger self. Yeah, everything else, I feel like everything happened for a reason that led me to where I needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, my advice for my younger self would probably be to be more emotionally flexible with changes and roadblocks that come up, because those things led you down this path. So everything I felt like at the time was something haphazard, or why me, or why did this happen? And then you start to see, well, wow, if this hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have been here, then this wouldn't have happened to me, or I wouldn't have met this person, so if ultimately what's meant for you, where you're meant to be is where you'll end up, but you have to be emotionally flexible to understand that it may not happen in your timeline that you set for yourself, but things may be happening even for the worse that ends up affecting you in a better way than you could have imagined, and just accept it and work with it and make whatever situation you're in work.
I like that.
Yeah, right. Well, our time is coming to an end, but we do want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, literally, to come and talk to us and talk to, all the women out there who see this. And everyone, we do have a task force meeting coming up April 12th at 2 p.m. at the Gwinnett Justice and Administration Center. So check our information to see the event flyer. We hope to see you all there.
Bye.
Bye.
Make sure it stopped.
Got it.
Stop the one on here. Like,
Is that one streaming too?
no, it's not. It's just
Oh.
recording.
Oh.
Woo.